I've been asked some listener questions for you, and I keep them anonymous. Okay. Yeah, but I keep them anonymous. But I'll ask you what they are as like a sound check if you want. Okay. Okay. Again, sorry that they're all anonymous. Who is your favourite comedian called Beck Hill? She dared me to ask.
Does she want me to say that she's my favourite comedian? I love Beck Hill. She's gorgeous. She's getting better and better every year, and she's having our wedding with us this year. So.
I know, I'm invited. I'm very excited.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
She's lovely. She's not my favourite comic. I think she's a very good performer. She's not. I don't mean. No, I think she's very capable, and she is going to go far. But she's not. To me, she's not a stand-up. Okay. Because she's just clever with her cartoons and all that kind of thing, and she's an all-round entertainer, from children to anybody could be entertained by her. But if you want me to say who my favourite comics are, obviously Bill Bailey, obviously what's his name, Dylan Moran. These are my two top, and then Lee Mack. Rob Rouse is lovely as well. He's a good comic now. He took a while to get there, and he's still got a lot of hard work to do, but he's a great comic. Lee Mack's fantastic. But Dylan and Bill are my top two stand-ups.
Odd question. I don't want to make it gendered immediately. Do you have a favourite female stand-up?
Jo Brand, it would have to be.
She's good. Yeah.
From my point of view, Jo is just naturally funny and lovely, and there are other comics like Jo Caulfield I like. She's very strong comic. I like Jenny Clare, but she's a bit potty-mouthed. I feel the same about... There's lots of good women, but they have a harder time, Oh, I know who I love is Zoe Lyons.
Oh, Zoe, yeah.
Zoe Lyons is brilliant. They have a harder time to make it. Why are you looking all... No,
I'm wondering where you were going with that, that's why.
It's harder for them.
In terms of the Fringe or in general?
In general.
Okay.
It's harder for women. It's harder to be a woman. Men are just natural show-offs, women have to just work a bit harder at it.
Hello and welcome to the Ask the Industry podcast, episode 54. My name's Simon Caine, and for those of you new to the show, this is the podcast where I interview the most influential people from the worlds of stand-up, comedy, radio, TV, and today, the Edinburgh Fringe. Koren is the founder of the Gilded Balloon, which is known as one of the big four venues at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. We get into the history of the venue and their prestigious competition So You Think You're Funny, as well as the future of the Fringe and a recent move into pay what you want shows. I think it's a great pod, and I think it's one that will be useful for anyone looking at taking a ticketed show to the Edinburgh Fringe and is weighing up the pros and cons between the free Fringe and the paid Fringe, as well as anyone who wants to know more about the Gilded Balloon in general. I'm going to keep this brief because it's quite a long one, so I don't want to blabber on too much, but if you're new here, please subscribe, and without any more delays, this is Koren.
Don't start.
You don't want to start there? Oh, okay.
No.
I have a few questions on that from people.
I'm sure you have.
Alright, we'll start somewhere else before then. What I tend to do is...
Just get to know me.
Yeah. No, I want to, that's why I'm here. Sorry. You okay?
No, but carry on.
Karen's hurt her back. I'm gonna edit it out as much as I can, but just letting you know up front, that's not what she normally sounds like. Why did you start the Gilded Balloon, and can you paint a picture of what the Fringe was like when you started it versus now?
I started the Gilded Balloon, or why did I start the Gilded Balloon? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Why did I start the Gilded Balloon? Well, I went through life looking for something to do that I really wanted to do. I wasn't sure in my 20s where my talents lay, and I had friends who were up and coming comics. They were, at stage school and everything, and the Fringe was, it was big then, and they were performing at places like Assembly and or church halls, and they were saying to me, please find us somewhere. And that's kind of how I got into it, because I got to know some of the new up and coming stand-up, and I did primarily start the Gilded Balloon as a comedy venue, but as the Fringe is, it's all kinds of genres, and I put on quite a lot of different things, but the largest genre I put on is comedy.
Okay, why is it called the Gilded Balloon?
Good question. Why is it called the Gilded Balloon? The Gilded Balloon was... it's a long story, but to cut a long story reasonably short, in the Cowgate there used to be a hat shop, and that hat shop had Gilded Balloon hats. Now, these Gilded Balloon hats were, and this is in the 18th century, maybe 19th century, there was a balloonist from, and it's actually well recorded in the National, not in the museum, in the National Library of Scotland. This balloonist, it was the first balloon flight from Heriot's grounds over to Fife. And this man was a beautiful man, and he was like a pop star, and all the ladies were in love with him. And they designed a hat which was like the balloon that he flew in, and you could be seen at church hearing these ladies saying, where did you get that hat? And they said, go to the Cowgate and look for the sign of the Gilded Balloon.
And you named your venue.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. That's a great bit of trivia.
It is trivia.
No,
but it's true.
No, because I'm trying to get on. I've forgot his name now, from the Pleasance. To talk about
Anthony?
stuff. No, it's oh god. Me and Bob talked about him on Bob's podcast, and he listened to it and tweeted me, because me and Bob, we were talking about a walrus penis bone that Bob had sponsored, and somehow we got onto the Pleasance from there. I can't remember his name right now. I'm going to edit this bit out because I can't remember his name.
Christopher Richardson. Christopher Richardson started the Pleasance, and the Pleasance is obviously named after the street. That area is called the Pleasance, and it's the same as Assembly, which in a way is a bit strange, because then you can't move, because when Assembly Theatre, which was in the Assembly Rooms in George Street, and they moved up to George Square where they are now, and Assembly Rooms were still there, then it got very confusing for people going to shows. You know, they sit in a taxi and said, we're going to this show at Assembly Room, and they'd take them to George Street. No. So
I don't need to have them on now. I don't.
So naming it after places is not that, you know. Whereas the Gilded Balloon, although it was from the Cowgate, it was quite an interesting little fact. And I liked Gilded Balloon because it connotates a little bit of fluff and a bit of humour, you know.
And when you started, as far as I've been told, the free fringe has existed less amount of time than the paid fringe. So I assume when you started, it was a paid venue, as it was.
Of course.
Because I'm trying to establish what the fringe looked like to someone who doesn't know what it looks like today. Because at the moment, it's I don't know how many hundreds of shows a day. And I imagine when you started, obviously there were fewer, and there were. Were you going to say something? Sorry.
No, I'm waiting for you to finish.
Oh, okay. So as someone who wasn't around when you started, it's 30 years now. So
31. Yeah.
31. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Can you paint a picture for someone like myself who wasn't here 31 years ago about how the fringe looked versus how it is now, and maybe even why you think it's changed to the way it has?
The fringe in the early to mid 80s was, I mean, the fringe was always quite exciting, and it was always probably the biggest arts festival in the world. It certainly is the biggest arts festival in the world now, but when the fringe, it was probably half the size it is now, at least half. But I started with one venue that had 150 seats, and so we did 7 shows, was it 7? Anyway, 27 days, 7 shows, 150 seater, and we went from that to opening round about 14 venues, and that took about 4 or 5 years. I moved to the building next door, and there was other rooms I opened and across the road, and so therefore it became a little more like a village, and you programmed the venue, the shows, so that they'd be 15 minutes apart, so you came out of one show and go into another, and so you can go and see. But that took quite a time, that took about 10-15 years to make it. I do remember a lot of stand-ups and a lot of shows would say, no, we don't want to be on that late, no, we don't want to be on that early, we don't, stand-up has to be at 9 o'clock, or 8 o'clock, or, and I remember, mark my words, he didn't want to be on at 7. And I said, you'll be fine, lots of people will come. Anyway, and he did fine. And I remember Mark Steele as well, having him on. He was on finishing at 11 or 11:15, and he just kept going and going. And the next performer would be walk up and down in the venue and say, will you hurry up and heckle him? Terrible.
As I understand it, and I might be wrong because I've never been with the Gilded Balloon, but as I understand it, the time slot does have a bearing on, so it's the venue and the time slot has a bearing on the deal that you get with the Gilded Balloon.
No.
Oh, is it not?
Well, you mean it's cheaper if it's in the morning?
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because when you said that it doesn't necessarily matter, it doesn't necessarily impact you as much as it might do outside of Fringe time if you had a show at 2:00 in the afternoon as opposed to August as a month. So I just wondered how you work out the value of the time slot for a performer.
Well, nowadays it's not as important because people know what they want to go and see, and if it's got a good reputation or it's already got good crits or the word and mouth is good about it, people will go and see it. I mean, 10 years ago, if you had a 2:00 show, it might not do so well. But now, because we've been going so long, it doesn't really matter what time. I mean, a very early morning show perhaps might have difficulty, but if it's good, then, and there's, they work hard and they go out flyering and they talk to a lot of people and, they have a selling hook, then people go. But of course it wasn't like that 30 years ago. 30 years ago, probably, I can't remember, although I've got the brochure somewhere, we would start we would have a morning show, certainly, we would have a kids show, but there was probably not as many. Now, in one venue, you'll have about 9 or 10 shows a day. Then there was probably in fact, I said 7 shows a day, didn't I? So we would have 7 in one venue.
Okay. And about 2 years into running the Gilded, you started So You Think You're Funny?
Yes.
Yes. What was the reasoning or thought process behind that?
Well, Scotland's quite a small country, and of course there's a lot of very funny people, but there's not a lot of places for them to perform, and it was to identify new performers, really. It was to find people who wanted to give it a go, So the whole premise of So You Think You're Funny is you can't have worked professionally or unprofessionally for more than a year or up to 18 months because there's so many coming along, because we kind of finish. We're kind of full by the time we get to May, and then there's June, July, so but we always get the newest, And
the idea is to keep a rotation of acts so people can't keep re-entering kind of thing?
You can't re-enter, no.
Yeah.
You can only go in once.
Was it, if you were friends with a lot of comedians at that time, or a lot of new comedians, was it awkward to have them, were they competing against each other and you were judging them, or were they just not entering because they knew it was your competition?
How do you mean people I knew?
Yeah.
No, it never worked like that. People who I already knew had already, they were already working in comedy.
Okay.
I mean, this is the newest of the new that didn't know who to approach, how to get into comedy. And I mean, there was, and there still is, a really big comedy circuit in London, and a few good towns in England, but here now there's only really the Stand, and you can't really make a living from that. You have to go to England and try it out if you want to, make it. You can do it as a hobby, of course, and that's fine, and I mean, you can live and work as a comedian more now than you ever could in Scotland, certainly. But I started it to discover other comics, and the camaraderie is such, and certainly in the 80s, the camaraderie of the comics where they all supported each other, and it was really, really good. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad now, it's just harder because there's so many, I mean, it's like rock and roll, they all want to be, a star.
Yeah, fair enough. So I had Minchin in my head then.
They're not all mentions.
No. So how many awards were there when you started that award at the Fringe? Because now there
was only one.
Okay.
Which was the Perry Award, which is now the Edinburgh Comedy Award.
Last minute one now, isn't it?
Yeah, last minute. Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's still Edinburgh Comedy Awards, but it's last minute.
It's going to take a while for that to
I don't think, are we going to see lastminute.com Edinburgh Comedy Awards? Is that what
I don't think anyone's going to.
Anyway, that had started in 80, I think, 1980.
Do you think there are too many awards now?
No, I don't think there's. I don't think there's many prestigious enough awards. I think there's nothing wrong with competition, and that helps the performer work harder and, have a goal to, get material together, etc. But I don't think I think our 2 awards are the best. I don't know what other awards there are. I know a couple of them, but I suppose the best comedy award is the television awards. The comedy awards, the TV comedy awards that actually I don't know if they've not been going the last year or 2 maybe, or they weren't televised maybe.
That's ironic.
But I know because Zoe Lyons won the last one.
Okay.
I think.
So in Scotland there is less of a live circuit outside of the Fringes, from what you were saying.
Yeah. I mean, we do. Gilded Balloon does monthly shows at Drygate in Glasgow, and we do shows here and in Fife, in Edinburgh and in Fife. And we were doing quite a lot up in Inverness, but we take stuff on tour as well. So there is a presence, but it's not the same kind of scene. Although, it's not as big as it was in London. A lot of the big, with Live at the Apollo and all that kind of thing and going into stadiums, it's changed the way comedy works and it's changed the live perception. It's much harder. Only the good clubs are surviving, really.
What do you mean by changing the live perception? As in...
Well, 15,000 people going to see one comic is not... It's nothing I want to see. I have to see. Yeah. But it's what... Obviously, the comic that can do that is not going to refuse to do it. Well, apart, if you're Bill Bailey, he won't go over 2,000-3,000, which is, even that's a lot, And he can be quite, because of his music and everything, he can be quite big, whereas one stand-up standing there, in front of 12 to 15,000 people is, I don't like it. It's not got an atmosphere, and, there's a delay for them when they hear the laughter, and it's not. Comedy was meant to be in small rooms and with you sitting there with a drink and having a good laugh.
No, I agree with that. Why do you think that's happened? Why do you think people have started to, or it's become not the norm? Because obviously only a percentage of comedians are doing it, and it's not the majority. But why do you think that has become?
No, but people want the comics want to aspire to that, and
really?
I think a lot of them do. Of course they do. Wouldn't you say?
I don't know. I've never...
Young comics do.
Okay.
They all want to be Kevin Bridges or John Bishop.
I don't think... I mean, I don't know if I'd call myself a young comic. I don't think I'd enjoy that. I sent my dad to see McIntyre at the O2 because he likes McIntyre, and I remember he was doing a warm-up gig at the Soho, and I asked him if he wants to go and see that instead, and he didn't. He wanted to go and see him at the... And I remember leaving, and my dad turned to me and regretted his choice. And I was quite glad about that, because it meant the next time around I took him to see him at the Soho, and it was much nicer.
Of course it is.
Yeah, but I don't know how many...
But I think a lot of new comics, they are aspiring. They want to be McIntyre, they want to be John Bishop, they want to be Kevin Bridges, and that's not going to happen to most of them. It's just not feasible,
I mean, the comedians you've named there, all of them are with quite big management. Do you think there's
Jack Whitehall's another one? And Jimmy Carr, and that's another management.
Do you think there's a management push to do that to make money, or do you think it's?
I think so. I think certainly it was Off the Curb that started Live at the Apollo, and that was all money. It was all to do with money. And yes, I think the bigger promoters, the bigger agents, they do push them. And I have to say there's a lot of really good young up-and-coming comics that I sort of think it's sad when they go with the big agents, because I know that they're going to change. I mean, Kevin Bridges changed hugely when he went with Off the Curb.
His style, of course, who he was.
Of course, for himself, it was good for him. Well, his whole look and manner is, I'm not saying he was locked in a room and told to go on a diet, but
Yeah, no, I can I mean, I've spoken to a few agents, and they guide the performer, and some of them literally do what the name is, manage what they want, and I'm always curious as to know whose choice it was to take certain paths, because you sort of see some people and you think, would you have made those decisions if like there was no management involved? Would you have put on a suit and done an arena tour?
And let's face it, they wouldn't.
No, I don't think so. But I mean, I can understand why though, because I mean, there's a money element, there's an ego element.
Of course, I mean it's brilliant for them. I'm just saying it's nothing wrong with what they've done. It's just changing the face of comedy for the audience. The audience, as you just said, your father went to O2 to see Michael McIntyre instead of going to see him in Soho. And, you know, that's... And that your father's privileged in that he knows people who knows comics, you know. So the normal commoner garden person just go, oh, that guy from the telly, he's on at O2, I must go and see him. You know, and it's just not good comedy, you know. It's just good money.
As in, so, because I know arena tours in particular, I mean, there's a spectrum of performers who do those, but it's also, it does apply to a certain style of comic. Do you know what I mean? So, like, you couldn't imagine, I can't think of anyone right now, but you can't imagine a certain, well, no, they did that, didn't they? The Mighty Boosh did, like, an arena tour, so maybe you could imagine any performer translating it to it, but I'm imagining there's a certain amount of change to who...
There is many a comic that would love to be able to do an arena tour to give them enough money just to live comfortably so they don't have to struggle to work. Because doing clubs night on night, I mean, Bill Bailey, for example, he so deserves his fame and fortune because he worked for 20 odd years doing 4 or 5 clubs a night and, you know, just working his guts out. And he's a hard-working guy and, you know, and dedicated to his art and his interests and, you know, what interests him. And that's why he's an interesting comic, because he's got lots of different subjects to discuss. You know, I mean, comedy that just talks about the girlfriend dumping me or the boyfriend dumping me, you know, just is, you know, boring.
What's the biggest room the Gilded Balloon has?
355 is the debating hall. But, you know, we put a gala on at the Playhouse. You know, we do bigger shows if it warrants it, and we've got the performer to put it, you know.
Was that designed that way because you like a smaller, intimate setting? So do you try and keep to just rooms that are a certain...
No, I would love to have a 700 or 800 seater, but I don't have one. That's down to Pleasance and Underbelly, you know. And you'll have seen yourself, there's a huge competition. When I started, I was the only one, you know, doing a lot of comedy. Assembly were doing a little, and Pleasance were doing a little, and we grew together. We grew, although Assembly is 5 years older than me, and Pleasance is 1 year older than me. So, you know, but we were doing the same. You know, most of the Perry Awards in those days were at one of our venues, you know, and kind of still is. Well, the Free Fringe have attracted some, but my feeling about the Free Fringe is it's a very good big starting point for new performers to start, but then move up as they gain their confidence, you know. As
in move up in like size of venue, or you mean to the paid Fringe?
Yeah, and size. You know, we've got small venues too. It's not, you know, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing the Counting House, because it's a much cheaper model and it's a pay what you. I mean, it's similar to Bob Slayer's, although Bob and I have had a bit of ups and downs. Well, I mean, I'm annoyed at him for putting a open letter in Chortle. I don't really see the point. If he wants to talk to me about something, he can come to me. You know, I just don't get the slagging off. You know, if I have not made a fortune on doing what I do it because I love what I do, I care about the performers, and I do not rip them off. And I never have.
I think his only... because I spoke to him... I don't remember when that article came out, but it was a while ago now, a couple of months, or at least a while.
It was when I got the Counting House.
Yeah, and I remember the one point that I remember talking to him about a lot was the production costs for performers, and how he said that his can be lower, and as a result that
yes,
it doesn't.
But he's giving. I am putting in extra equipment. I'm putting in an infrastructure. I've got. Front of house people. I'm running it like a proper venue. He gives them a bus or a room. I actually don't know. I know he's got a bus, and I know he has a shop, And the counting house was run really badly. There was nobody there to help them. And this will be different, because they're paying a small amount. It's 50p a seat. It's not a lot of money, and they have the opportunity of not losing money. But they've got to work hard at it, you can't just come to the Fringe and expect people to come.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this podcast for me is when I talk to pretty much everyone who comes up to the Fringe, whether it be a PR or a touring person or a manager, most of them say, we don't make money at the Fringe. We make money off the back of it.
That's right.
Having a long-term plan.
That's right.
Is that the same with you as a venue? Do you make money off of, you said you do sometimes...
I don't make money.
Oh, sorry, okay.
It's very rare. I certainly don't make loads of money.
Okay. No, I wondered if you, because you said that you take shows on tour and beyond the things.
And that's hard. That's got its difficulties as well.
In what? As in, because you don't own the venue, or?
No. Have you ever toured?
I'm technically on one, yeah.
You're technically on one.
I booked my own tour, so I'm
but
on
you
one,
only need an audience of one.
Oh, God. That's
no, but I mean, what you're doing now is just me and you. When you go on tour, you have to sell the tickets, and if the venues don't market you, or don't do it, and you only have two people there,
Yeah.
So it's financial. It can be crippling,
No, what I meant is I've instead of doing the Fringe this year, because I didn't get a time or a venue that I wanted, I booked my own tour, and I'm doing 30 dates now around the country, and my average audience is about 18 to 20 people, which is not amazing, but for someone who I don't.
Well, as long as you've done a budget and you know that 35% or whatever it is your break-even point, then great. But
I'll break even at this rate, which is fine, because I'm looking at it as an investment, so that next year when I do the Fringe, I've got connections with venues, so I can just do a tour immediately without anyone else's help. That's my aim anyway.
Good, great.
Thanks.
It's good to be innovative and think about it, and because it's hard, and the people, and it's nonsense that the Avalons and Off the Curbs and everything don't make money. I mean, Jimmy Carr's been coming up for the last 10, 15 years and making money at the EICC, as has Craig Hill, as has Daniel Sloss. They come here and that's one gig that they know that they're going to make money off, so it's nonsense that they don't. When Tim Minchin, when I brought him over from Australia first year, he went home with 15 grand. Money that he would never have thought he could have. And that's because we worked our bollocks off to get him people in, And he was an amazing talent and bloody blah. And, there's not a lot of meteoric stars that come along like that, And he will never have to worry again. And that all started because of the festival.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think the thing that bugs me a lot is when newer comedians say it's really annoying that the Fringe isn't this artistic ground for trying new stuff out anymore. It's an industry.
It is. Of course it is.
Well, no, they say it's more of an industry showcase now.
Well, what's the difference?
You would
a showcase is showing new work, surely.
I think the way that some people see it is you used to come up here and hone a show, whereas now you come up with a finished show. And
well, yes, you must come with a finished show.
Yeah,
one that you're prepared to be criticised for, or critiqued. You have to put on a show that is ready to tour. And that show that I saw in Australia in 2005, April 2005, of Tim Minchin's was absolutely... I mean, I said to the artistic director of Melbourne, I said, where has this guy been? He's obviously been... his show was ready. And it's about the performer's commitment. A lot of them come up and, that material didn't work, let's try that. You've got the material that Tim Minchin did that year and the year after and the year after that is ones he does every single night the same, because he's a performer, he knows what works, and that's what you want to see,
So when you're scouting, because when I spoke to Beck about you, she, just as a chat before this podcast,
that's quite all right.
I
know that Beck's the nicest girl in the world.
She's amazing.
She'd never say anything horrible about me.
No, but she was...
she might say I shout a bit, but that's all right.
Who doesn't? Especially in August. No, but I was talking to you about your support for the Australian scene, and I wondered why specifically the Australian scene.
Well, there's a very good comedy festival there for a start. It's been going since... actually, they seem to say they've been going as long as me, but I don't think it's maybe 25 years. It was certainly the mid-90s that they started being more noticed, and it's not nowhere near as big as Edinburgh, but it was it was getting bigger. And actually in the late 80s, I started putting on Australian. They just, like the Doug Anthony All-Stars, for example, which I'm pissed off they're going to Pleasance because they should be coming to me. But Tim is in a wheelchair now, and we would have had to lift him onto the Debating All stage. So, but we'll see them, I'm sure. But Doug Anthony All-Stars, they got their Perry nomination with us, and Greg Fleet came over every single year. And that sort of started it off, and I ended up going over every year since 1995.
Which festival are you talking? The
Melbourne Comedy Festival.
The Melbourne Comedy. Because there's the Melbourne Fringe and the Melbourne... Isn't there? There's two in Melbourne.
Oh, there's loads. There's hundreds of festivals. But Adelaide Fringe is just prior to Melbourne Comedy Festival, and the Adelaide Fringe is a carbon copy of the Edinburgh Fringe, as is Brighton. They use the same concept, the same. They came to Edinburgh and thought, oh, that's good, we'll do it. And of course Edinburgh have supported them to do that, and they go and do road shows there. The same at Brighton.
Oh, that makes sense why they only go to those places, and London for the road shows.
Yeah.
So I was wondering why that festival stands out to you. Like, I mean, is it just the comedy scene there? What is it about Australian comedians that work over here then, for example? Or is it just
they speak English?
Yeah. Fair enough. That's a big plus.
Because I used to go to Montreal a lot as well. Montreal is a much bigger. You were talking about it being industry. It is an industry type. There's a lot of television and everything there. But so I never went to Montreal looking for anything. I would just go to Montreal to get connections and meet people and everything. But in Melbourne, there is loads and loads of young up-and-coming, And Australians have a great sense of humour. I mean, some of it is a wee bit too below the belt, maybe not my cup of tea. But, I mean, Adam Hills, for example, he did 4 years with the Gilded Balloon before he actually started selling properly, and now he's done brilliantly.
Does it matter to you, then, if they're not your style of comedy, to be at the Gilded Balloon?
It doesn't matter to me unless they are the sort of Roy Chubby Brown type. I would never do anything like that. But I'm not... I don't always love all the comedy. Certainly in the early days, I would be more particular, but now it's bigger, now we've got more. I mean, this year I'll be interested to see how Mike Ward gets on. Mike Ward is a Canadian guy who was charged with something, I'll have to get you all the details. But he, in fact, I think we'll find it's in our little brochure. He said he was charged with saying the wrong thing, let's see what time it's on.
As in like a legal dispute?
Yeah.
In a show or in life?
In a show.
Okay.
In a stand-up. Problem is I have to hold this mic. Anyway, you carry on talking to me.
Well, I was going to ask about the future of the Fringe too, and your opinion on it, because you mentioned the Counting House, and you're going to a pay what you want model there, and I wondered if there's...
And that's because it's smaller venues, and they're not as equipped well, or I mean, it's good to use that model, I think, but not only have that, to have a proper model as well. There it is. Mike Ward, freedom of speech isn't free. Having been sued by the Canadian government for telling a joke, multi-award-winning comedian Mike Ward makes his highly anticipated Fringe debut. The Human Rights Commission of Quebec now wants to fine him $80,000. Mike has decided to get his money's worth by bringing the joke to Edinburgh as part of a show about freedom of expression. Mike is one of Canada's top comedians. His recent tour grossed $5 million. There you go. He hosts The Nasty Show, aired on HBO, which is the most popular show at Montreal, just for laughs.
I mean, he's going to need to sell a lot of tickets to
well, for
cover that cost.
80,000, I don't know exactly. Yeah, he's not going to do it in Edinburgh this year.
Yeah.
But maybe next year, you never know.
Is it, so you said it's 50p a seat. Is that how you... So I'm trying, because I do free Fringe pretty much always. So when you say something like 50p a seat, it's kind of like, I'm wondering if the room's 50 seats, you just go 50 times 50, and then that's the cost for the performer, or like I said, is it a case of how much would that cost in your I've forgotten the name of the venue, the actual guild, I know where it is.
Teviot.
Yes.
In Teviot.
Do you do it by like cost per seat there as well?
No, we do it. Yes, we do. How many seat? What the ticket price is? Ticket price against seat against about 40%, and it's called the facility fee.
What's the 40? Oh, the 40% is your cut of the ticket?
No.
Oh, sorry.
That's what the rental, but it's called a facility fee.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay, right. I've got 3 questions I'm feeling quite uncomfortable about asking you.
Okay.
Because they're what I would call misconceptions about what's happened. And I wondered if you can totally back out and say you don't want to answer them, and I'll edit it out so you don't, whatever.
Depends what you're going to say.
Yeah, fine. But I just thought I'd tell you how I'm feeling about this right now. Because like I said, I let the audience ask what they want to ask, and I make a...
You must remember, I've been around a long time, and there's some people in this world that just have, and they just, I don't know if it's a jealousy or what it is, but they love to slag women off, particularly. I mean, because I'm the only woman that runs, I've had loads of things in the evening news and stuff like that says, you just crap about me, And, you get horrible letters sometimes and everything. And that's just the way it is. And I have to rise above that, and get on with it. Get on with it. What are you going to tell me?
Well, no, I can understand people having... It's politics in general. You know what I mean? Like every industry has a...
I could never be a politician. I'm far too honest.
Well, no. Didn't Tommy recently go there from the start? Yeah, sorry.
Tommy is an MP and a very good one. But he's also a very good speaker, and he's passionate about I want the world to be a wonderful place, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to fight all these people.
Do you pay what you want performers have to pay the fee to be in the Big Four catalogue as well as the main Fringe programme?
Yes.
Okay, we'll keep them just yes no answers. That'll be fine.
Indeed.
Okay. Second question to that bit: what kind of deal gets offered to the pay what you want performers? Is there a minimum guarantee put for a room size? How does the split work?
It's a minimum guarantee.
So as in up to a certain... So let's say it's £1,000 guarantee.
It's nowhere near as much as that.
Okay.
In the pay what you want model. I think the highest is probably... Oh, no, that's not true. The bigger room, it's more...
The ballroom?
Yeah.
Okay. When you got the counting house, do you think you were treated fairly?
In what
As in by comedians or other promoters?
I didn't read it, but everybody told me that they were... Put it this way, there was lots of people that support me and said, don't listen to them or don't read the stuff. We know that you're fine, that you work hard and everything. And my daughter read it and some of my staff read it, but I didn't read any of the stuff because I'd get angry probably. And I'm disappointed in people like Kate Copsick, who I've known for 30 odd years, and she knows that I am not making a fortune out of what I'm doing, so why she's slagging me off I don't know. And John Fleming as well, who I've known a long time, and I always thought he was a mate of mine, but obviously not.
I missed what John did. Sorry.
John and Kate, just say how dare she take the a free Fringe venue and all this,
When you, because I remember, in fact you said it earlier on, that it was your venue first. Is it a case of, did you...
I had Eddie Izzard on there. I had Lee Evans on there. It's in 1991. And I had Mira Seal on there. I had some great stuff on there. And it was a lovely venue there. And it was just ruined when it went out of business financially.
Was it a case of you and this is just my perspective on this, was it a case of you saw that it wasn't being run well in your opinion, and so I have an affinity with that venue because I started with it, I want to bring it back to where I want it to be at?
That's one of the things, but it wasn't. It was absolutely nothing to do with the free Fringe or anything. It's to do with the fact that I'm going to lose venues soon because there's so much work going on in the university area that I'm going to lose stuff at TV. It's going to be built on, and I need other venues.
Okay.
And I also want to do stuff all year round there.
Oh yeah, no, I heard about you. You're going to try and make a club that will be like run weekly gigs. Is that right? Yeah. Is that?
There's no point in doing that if I'm not doing it in the festival.
Okay, I have questions about that, but I'm going to finish off the just because I figure let's just put it all in one big batch, and then that way we can move on from the potentially awkward questions. Are comedians allowed to keep the 100% of the bucket in brackets, their tip jar, or is there a split involved there?
The rental that they've been quoted, they have to reach that rental, which is, as I say, about 50p a seat or whatever it is. So yes, we let them keep the bucket, but until that's reached, we just calculate. We keep a note of what they've got, and then once the rental's got, they can keep it. But it's a 60-40 split in the whole thing.
In terms of you putting in production value to that venue, I presume that means that you have a deal with the venue that means that
I pay them a rental.
Yeah, on the rooms.
I'm paying them a rent for the whole space. Yeah.
Okay, and I assume that deal lasts the whole year and it doesn't change you in the Fringe or anything. So is that why you're able to, like, sort of keep the costs lower for acts, or is it?
No, I just did with the rental and what staff I'm going to put in. I calculated how much I would need in order to make that happen, and that was my starting point. So I'm not going to make a profit from that venue unless the bar takes more than it ever did before.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So is your business model the same for Cheviot with that, where you make more money on the bar than the shows?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Cheviot, I get a small percentage of the bar, but I used to get a higher percentage before, and it's the students' union that take all the bar money.
Oh, that makes more sense then. Sorry, I'm just in my head.
This is why I don't make any money. Underbelly are rich because they've got their own bars. I don't have my own bar.
And so I suppose this move to the counting house means that you kind of have a bigger cut of the bar, which means that
only if they have to reach what they reached when it was a free Fringe venue. So it's up to me to
bring people in, kind of thing. What would you do if what would you and the other paid venues do if comedians had a boycott against the paid Fringe due to the expense that is coming out of putting a show on at the festival?
Say that again?
So I'll rephrase the question, because I think the way they've written it is, basically what I do is I copy and paste their questions into a section, and I don't usually grammatically change it, which is probably to my own detriment at this point in the interview.
Go on.
I think what they're basically asking is if there was a boycott involved for the paid Fringe because of the rising costs of doing a show in Edinburgh, how would you react to that? Because I'm assuming you'd always be able to find acts to...
Comics can try as much as they like to boycott and do all the things. I am not expensive. I am not ripping anybody off. So if they want to boycott, that is absolutely up to them. But there are so many people who want to become performers and be successful that I'll always find performers to put in the slots. I think it's sad if some really good performers, get all het up. I think they need to talk to the people that have been at the Gilded Balloon and been looked after and had a good time. And we've got a very loyal, we've got some great staff, and they look after all the performers, and they feel, Beck, for one, for example, I don't think she'd go anywhere else, hopefully not. But I had Rich Hall when he first started every year, and then and Ross Noble and Daniel Kitson and all of them, but they all moved on, so they move on. I just have to accept that.
Do you think that the Free Fringe then has perpetuated, not a myth, but like a perception of you and the other big four that you're expensive?
Yeah. I'm not saying that Assembly or Underbelly or maybe Pleasance and I are the ones that work closest together. And I'm not saying that. The thing is, we put in really good equipment to every room, and we give a good service and everything. And it is expensive, but it's not expensive because we can guarantee audiences. The Free Fringe can only guarantee audiences that might not be attentive. They walk in and out, and I just think it's not as well looked after. They don't have toilet facilities, some of them. They don't have proper lighting, whereas we make sure that it is as close to a good theatre setting as possible.
If an act goes with the Gilded Balloon, do they have to, for example, provide their own PR, or do you? How do you help provide?
We've got a big press office,
Right.
and we make sure that every single performer gets support, and they come and talk to them, and they work their guts out. These guys,
Mm.
and we've got a flyering team, and but we have to pay them.
Yeah.
You have to have enough money coming in to pay all these people.
And I assume because of the infrastructure and the way that your business is built up, that's why you're able to get. I don't think you can. You guarantee audiences? I mean, that's. I mean, do you know what I mean? Because it's like.
Yes, I think now we can. People come, and if it's a shit show, they won't come back, and the word and mouth will be out. Mm. So some of them don't get, but honestly, most of them, because we've now made this hub that is very, so, and if they go out there, the audiences are there. I mean, this year it'll be interesting to see how it goes, because the Olympics start at the same time, and that might stop people coming in,
How does your pay what you want model vary from, for example, Bob's or any of the other pre-existing ones? Okay.
I have no idea how it varies, because I haven't gone into his model.
Okay.
I mean, I think Just the Tonic do it as well, don't they?
Yeah. Mm. How would you?
I mean, I think. Just hang on 1 minute.
Okay. Probably printed.
No, it's just something to do with the counting house, our models.
Oh, okay.
What the performer gets from us. A PR team which promotes all Gilded Balloon venues, artists, companies. The press staff will assist performers and provide them information on how to best publicise their show. The services at our press office should not be seen to replace strenuous promotional activities by the visiting company. GB is a platform for visiting companies to get the best possible recognition from press, radio, television, promoters and other international festivals. Tickets on sale at the Fringe, Gilded Balloon, Assembly, Pleasance and Underbelly Box House, approximately 15 citywide. Support from a friendly, knowledgeable team who are on hand to provide advice. Media sponsorship from the Times and Sunday Times, 75,000 brochures distributed through the network. Maximum ticket prices of £10, minimum £5. Customer can buy a ticket in advance to guarantee entry or pay what they want, like at the end of the show. Acts keep any money received in the buckets from free customers. Amounts recorded at the end of each show and added to the final settlement figures. 60-40 split in the performer's favour on all income, pre-sales and bucket. Facility fee payable is GB is 40% of the total box office receipt or the fixed. Anyway, I could go on.
But I think a lot of what I got from what the move was trying to work out what the future of the Fringe looks like in terms of if it continued with other of the Big Four or yourself, well, you're part of the Big Four, getting the free venues, and even if because you said earlier on that the free venues are a great starting ground and stuff. So I'm wondering, what it will look like if the better free venues get not eaten up, but run by the Big Four, and how that will affect the acts coming through. That obviously will affect you in the long run, and how. I tell you what, let's leave it as that for now, and I'll ask you what.
But why would we? I mean, there's no reason to Assembly have X amount of venues all around George Square. Why would they go over to, say, the Cowgate or the Caves, for example, used to be mine. When I was in the Cowgate, the Caves, I gave them to Underbelly, and Underbelly gave them to Just the Tonic. I mean, it's more about us working together, I would have thought, rather than, we're going to eat you all up. But that's nonsense.
So
Underbelly have got lots and lots of other irons in the fire, as does Assembly, as does Pleasance, And all of us, in our own way, help performers make it where they want to get to.
Mm.
So, I just think this professional jealousy, or whatever they want to call it. I mean, I'm certainly not making a huge amount of money. I'm lucky if I'm breaking even. Sometimes we actually make money. The rest of the year, I try and put whatever I make into doing what I do the rest of the year. But even that's not enough to, I've got to do other things,
What other things do you do outside of the Fringe?
Oh, I've got a small comedy festival in Fife at the moment.
Oh, cool.
In April. which I'm making larger, and Katie, my daughter, there is coming into the business, so she's looking to do other things. We have to expand in order to, keep going all year round.
It's kind of confusing, and forgive me for being ignorant here, but it's kind of confusing because I've spoken to like Mick Perrin, for example, who tends to not make a profit at Edinburgh. I've spoken to several different PRs who all say they don't make a profit at Edinburgh. Most comedians...
PRs?
Yeah.
Okay. A PR charges £1,500 to £2,000 per show, and if they do 10 to 20 shows, that's 40 grand. That's not a bad wage for a month's work.
When I took that question to them, most of them said they don't just start working on the 1st of August. They've got the build up.
Yes, but they're also doing other things the rest of the year. 40 grand is not a bad, Anyway, that's up to them.
I'm just trying to work out, aside from the people who rent flats, is anyone making money at this festival, or is it
the city is making money, isn't it?
Yeah, the local businesses
and it's not I am not it's not my it's not about making money for me, it's about survival, but it's about being passionate about what we do, and that's not about making the money. I'm not driven by making the big buck. That's not what I'm driven by.
You're driven by pushing out good talent and discovering new comedy.
Yes, and not just comedy. It's, good work.
Mm. So, going forward in the Fringe, how do you see more, or do you think the other three of the big four will take on pay what you want models, or even?
I doubt they will.
Okay.
I don't think they will at all. In fact, I don't think it's what they're interested in.
Why did it interest you?
Because that venue is not worth... it's not as good as Teviot. So therefore I felt, and I also felt, it would be better to do a model that the younger new performer could afford, and we can help them that way. From the beginnings, we can help beginning, and if we do things all year round, we can support them and give them work.
So kind of between Free Fringe and the Teviot. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's kind of your way of discovering people that you might move to your other venue, or?
Yes, hopefully.
Well, yeah. And in terms of scouting for acts, how and where do you look for them?
Oh, I'm going to have to say Australia.
Okay.
Everywhere. We were over in New York this year, and I always go to Kilkenny. We've got a good couple of Irish acts this year, actually. I'm invited to shows all the time to see them, so I just go wherever. I was in Prague, I saw some things. I was in New Zealand in February. I got a good handful of shows that I'm going to put on next year, and I had 3 that I've put on this year. So, there's lots of festivals around the world but primarily they come to us, and we, look at what they've got to offer,
As in agents or comedians that don't have agents, or?
Or, people on their own. We have a programming email that they email into and sell their show to us. And they should send us clips and everything on that.
Yeah, totally. And in terms of these are random questions I've been asked, and I don't understand them because I've googled them. I've been told to ask, why was Russell Brand ejected from the Gilded Balloon in his early career?
Well, he wasn't ejected. Well,
I googled this because I thought, is someone trying to set me up for something here?
No, Russell and I go way back. I met him in the late 90s, and I told him that he should come and do So You Think You're Funny, which he did. And I got on very well with him, and I put him on Late and Live and blah. And he was comparing a best of So You Think You're Funny. And he was obviously a bit worse for wear in whatever substances he was taking at the time. And he started preaching at the audience about the murderer of those 2 young girls. There was 2 young girls who were murdered in England somewhere, and he started preaching at everybody, and the technical guy, the technician, put off his microphone, which was so stupid because it made him angry, and he threw thing, and so my front of house staff got the bouncers, and the bouncers came and carried him out, and he put his leg through the glass door down in the nightclub, and he cut all his leg and everything. He was taken to hospital, and he wrote me a 7-page letter of apology, saying how sorry he was and that, blah de blah.
Sounds like you'd have a lot of time in hospital to write that.
Yeah. But of course that went down the fire, so I don't have it to show anybody. Oh. But we did, in one of his biographies, he had kept a letter that we sent him, my manager had sent him, because he was a bit like a Pied Piper character, Fagin, and he had all these kids flying for him, but the kids were, little scallywags that were going around pickpocketing all my customers and everything. So we had to have a stern word with him and say, look, stop it. These kids are too young to work. They shouldn't be working for you. And we wrote to him and said, and he put it in his biography. So that was quite funny.
Amazing. Okay. Ask her about Phil Kay.
Who asked me about Phil Kay?
I don't know.
Bob Slayer.
Was it Bob Slayer? I don't think it would have been Bob, because Bob's asked a lot of
Phil
questions.
Phil Kay and I looked after Phil for over 20 years.
As a manager? Or?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And Phil was, and still has it in him, to be one of the best comics around. I mean, in the mid-90s he was phenomenal. He was so funny, and everybody loved him. And my theory, I mean, he would never listen to anyone, certainly not me. I mean, he had the opportunities he had so many opportunities that he turned down, and in a way I was his, he would phone me up. He would only phone me up ever for money, and I kept him going, and he had some great, the television companies were all interested in him and everything. But in the late 90s he started smoking a lot of that skunk stuff, and I think it made him a bit, and I stayed with him as long as I could, but eventually I just couldn't take it anymore. And we didn't ever say goodbye, and I would get there might be some inquiries about him, and I would get in touch, but he always wanted to change things. He could never say, yes, I'll do it. Any offer that came in, he would never say, yes, I'll do it. Could you ask them to pay me cash? Could you ask them to do this? Could you ask them to do that? And I would do it as long as I could, and then it ended up not. Don't hate him at all. He's a very talented boy, but when I say boy, he's the same age as my son. He missed a lot of opportunities. And my advice was always work really hard at the beginning, show them how good you are, make some money, and then you can choose once you've, I mean, that's what Tim was doing, I mean,
Tim Minchin, by the way.
Yeah, sorry. Tim Minchin. He just knew that an opportunity only comes along. There's always someone new coming up behind you, So you just get on with it, especially at the early part of your career.
That's a reoccurring problem that most industry people talk about, is that everyone's kind of looking for the new young person.
Well, they don't have to be young.
Okay.
Just new, I mean, there is that thing, the arrogance of youth, and their sort of enthusiasm at the beginning, that wanes a bit once they've got somewhere, but it's about knowing what you want and persevering. If you don't keep working, I mean, the Gilded Balloon has only gone on 31 years because I've kept on doing it.
Mm.
You know, there's many a time I thought I'm not going to do this anymore. And you know, I've remortgaged my house more than once. I mean, many times, you know.
How is your daughter getting involved going to impact the future of the Gilded Balloon?
Well, she's going to take it over.
But I mean, is she following the same direction you've always had, or has she got some new ideas for...
Oh, absolutely. It has to be her new ideas. She has to move it her way. And, I mean, I will continue programming and doing what I do, and her new ideas will come along. And, you know, at the moment, she's running the whole marketing and press team and learning what we've done all these years. And, you know, she'll have her own input.
So if
And she's getting more and more confident every year, so
if the Scottish live comedy scene outside of the Fringe is not vast, shall we say, why do you think, or what factors have made Edinburgh the place that the largest comedy festival in the world would be?
Say that again, what was the last bit?
Well, you said it's the largest comedy festival in the world, Edinburgh.
No, it's the largest arts festival in the world.
Okay, sorry.
So, I mean, therefore I would say it's probably the largest comedy festival. I mean, Melbourne's a big comedy festival, and Montreal, but we, the Big Four, it wasn't my decision, it was the other guys, wanted to call it a comedy festival so that they could get sponsorship and everything, which drove people like Stuart Lee and to not want to talk to or perform with us anymore, which I thought was a shame, you know, because he's such a talent. And that was about 10 years ago. All that hoo-ha was around. See, you don't even remember it.
Well,
so
I'm trying to work out why a sponsorship deal would push away comedians.
No, it wasn't. It was because we called it a comedy festival.
Oh, okay, fine.
And I, of course, said, if you have a comedy festival, you've got to have the stand in it. And the stand didn't want to be in it.
Right.
So, you know, you're not a comedy festival. You're part of, I mean, because there was other comedy on offer than our four.
Why did they not want to be part?
Who?
The stand.
Oh, the stand don't like us either.
As in the Big Four?
I actually get on very well with Tommy, but he's left.
As in the Big Four, or just the Gilded Balloon?
The Big Four. No, I get on fine with Tommy. He's got no problem with us, but he's, of course, now an MP, so
yeah.
It's taken a while for us and the stand to... Gilded Balloon and the stand to get on. I mean, when they first came along, they were very... aggressive to us, you know, like we are the grassroots of Scottish comedy. Yeah, well, I've been going 15 years longer than you, so how are you? But you know,
that's interesting that they wouldn't, because like you talk about it as if you're allies with the rest of the Fringe and the businesses that are run around it.
Yeah.
So it seems,
and it should be like that.
Yeah, it just seems weird that they would come along and immediately go, well, not immediately go, but have a problem with you without necessarily, like you said, getting to know you.
Yeah, that's right. And that lasted about 10 years. The first 10 years of the stand, they didn't talk to us at all. And, you know, there will be reasons for that, but none that I want to go into. No, I mean, nothing to do with me, it's to do with the stand's infrastructure.
What's your relationship like with the people that run free Fringe venues?
I don't really know them. I know Daryl. Daryl was really annoyed with me. Daryl, Just the Tonic, because he, funnily enough, he started taking over venues that I had already had. And he came and he was, because Underbelly used to have the caves, Just the Tonic came in, and therefore our Big Four became Underbelly and the cave, and the Just the Tonic. They started growing so big, and I said, we can't have them, and there's not enough room for us all, you know, and he's going to swallow. He took another venue that I had opposite. It was a nightclub. I'd done it for a year or two, and then he went in and got it. And, you know, it's business. They did that, and that's fine, but he was annoyed at me for stopping him being in the Big Four, because I just thought, and also the quality of what he does is not I think, as good as us. Some of it is, but some of it isn't. So I stopped him being part of that, and he wouldn't talk to me for a while. And I went up to him at some reception and said, "Oh, come on, what's going on?" And he got in touch last year, the year before, and said, "Oh, have you got some piece of equipment?" And I helped him get it, and that's what you do. You know.
Could it ever be the Big Five, or
no? That's what I'm saying. I stopped that.
Okay.
No, it can't be the Big Five, because I would then obviously become the smallest, and the quality of what I've been doing in 30 years. I'm sorry to say this, Daryl, because what Daryl does is very good. Just the Tonic is a great venue and everything, but it's not the quality of what we do.
As in terms of the venue or the shows that they put on? Or?
The shows they put on. Some of them are. I'm not saying some of the shows are really good, but not all of them. I'm not. It's just, it was starting to get, it's too big. Big Four is big enough. I mean, it was actually the Big Three, and Underbelly wouldn't have been there without me helping them. Because when I burnt down in 2002, when the Gilded Balloon burnt down in the Cowgate, I split off from Assembly and Pleasance and went with Underbelly and marketed with them for about 4 years. And the Assembly and Pleasance said, "We want you back." And I said, "Well, I won't go back without Underbelly." How stupid am I?
Otherwise it would just become the Big Two and the Big Two or something.
Yeah.
That would have been an interesting...
Although it was like that for 2 or 3 years or 4 years, I don't know how many.
The interesting thing that I spoke to Earl Oaken about the Fringe a while ago, because he was coming to it a lot, and then the reason he said...
I put him on in 1985, Earl Oaken.
Oh, okay. He told me the reason he stopped coming was when the Big Four, or I think it was the Big Three at the time, got a bus or something and started
We had a bus. Yeah.
And started to drive people to their venues, avoiding all the venues that were not...
I wasn't avoiding. Edinburgh is tiny. You're not avoiding anywhere.
I'm just saying...
Say what you said.
Yeah.
I mean, it may not have gone past the door of the venue he was performing at, but you kind of can't avoid being close to nearly all the venues. It was a bus that went from Assembly to Pleasance to Gilded Balloon.
Why did the bus stop existing?
What?
Why did you stop doing the bus?
Because we couldn't afford it.
Okay.
We had sponsorship to do it.
Oh, okay.
It was a free bus. Perform so that they could get to shows and stuff. It was a good idea, but we only did. I mean, we had cigarette sponsorship then.
Oh, okay. Are you sponsored now?
No.
Okay. Is it a case, because when I speak to other Fringe festivals, so I was talking to Leicester Comedy Festival when they were sponsored by Dave, and I think it was Melbourne Fringe I spoke to recently, who are sponsored by Bank of Australia, and they were all saying to me that the sponsors essentially keep it going. Like they're the main source of income for most places. So is there a reason why you're independent in that respect? Or is
No,
it
we're not independent. We just haven't been able.
You just haven't got sponsors.
We lost Foster's one Fringe ago, so we've only had one Fringe without. This is going to be the second, and sponsorship is really difficult to get. And unfortunately, because of our bar situation, the students' union take the bar sponsorship. And I can't get a deal off that, We've got a little bit money from Russian vodka this year because the Students' Union want us to facilitate them. But other than that, and of course it's one of the things we're out looking for,
Definitely. These are the quick final questions.
Okay.
The quick fire for me, you take as long as you like to answer them. What are the best books on comedy writing stand-up that you've ever read?
I haven't read any, I don't think. I can't think of any. I remember, Malcolm Hardy wrote Through the Cake Hole or something. Freddie Mercury. And, that guy... No, I haven't read any. I've got some. I've certainly got some at home, but I haven't read them.
Okay. What is the biggest mistake you've ever made, and how did you overcome it?
What was the biggest mistake I'd ever made, and...
How did you overcome it?
I don't think it's mistakes. I think it's learning curves. Like the Counting House, for example, was the first time I had a company that was going to go down the toilet because, financially. And that was really hard, because you learn the first people you have to pay is your staff, and the next is your suppliers, and the last people you pay is the council tax, VAT and council tax. But all these things have got to be paid, and if you get to a situation where it's all, we were hemorrhaging money for a while. When you've got the venue was a restaurant and bar, and so that was really hard when I had to give that up. But I overcame it with just sheer determination and paying back over the years. You get into debt and you pay back.
Okay. What is the most interesting thing you do that nobody ever gets to see? Nothing rude.
Playing with my grandchildren, I suppose.
Okay.
None of them ever see my relationship with my grandchildren. That it's, the middle one's special needs, and I help with respite for her because my son and daughter-in-law and the other two grandkids need some time away from her, and so I look after her at least once a week, and then once a month a weekend, and then 1 or 2 weeks a year so they can get away. So I do that as much as I can.
That's nice. Who is the most underrated person in the industry?
Who is the most?
The most.
There's probably loads of them are underrated.
The top 3 then. That's probably making it harder, anyway.
Dylan Moran is certainly underrated, and is not. And actually, he doesn't really want to do television very much, but he's a very talented guy. And Rob Rouse is very talented and doesn't get enough.
I should clarify. I'm talking about industry people, not performers.
Oh,
sorry.
No, you never said that.
Sorry. When I said I thought.
Sorry.
Yeah.
In the industry, you mean underrated? When you say industry people, you mean agent?
Anyone who is usually not performing on stage, let's put it that way. So we're talking agents, fringe promoters,
Bruce
PRs.
Dessau is brilliant. Bruce Dessau is the London Standard and knows his comedy, and he's a brilliant guy. I think he's underrated. I think he's lovely. Charlie Briggs works for Hannah Chambers, and she used to work for me, and Hannah Chambers poached her off me. And actually she used to work for Avalon as well, and she is absolutely brilliant. Julia Chamberlain, who is my producer for So You Think You're Funny, she absolutely loves and knows her comedy to bits. Fred Southern as well, who runs Late and Live for me, very hard-working girl. And they all these girls really know their comedy and work really hard at it.
Sorry, what is the biggest problem in the Edinburgh Fringe, and how would you go about solving it?
The biggest problem? Well, the inter-venue squabbling, this thing with the Free Fringe and the Big Four, that's nonsense. I'm not saying that everything the Big Four or the others, other than the Gilded Balloon, do is right, but I think there should be more discussion. There is actually, Rowan's not here because she's at the AIVP meeting, which is the venue, it's all the venues on the Fringe that they get together. But the Free Fringe, they should talk to people more. The Free Fringe have got inter-venue squabbling as well, actually, because, Peter Buckley Hill and someone else they lost venues, or they... Anyway.
Okay, this is the last one, don't worry. Sorry, look at your clock. Well, it's actually just two-parter, which makes it annoying. What is the best bit of advice you've ever been given? And it doesn't have to be something you've used, just something you've been given. And if you had one bit of advice for a performer coming to the Fringe for the first time, what would it be?
I'm not sure about the advice I've been given, but I suppose be determined and don't give up, And as far as a performer is concerned, believe in yourself. Believe in you've decided that you're going on this path, so believe in your own material and that you're good. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. You've got to believe in what you want to do, I always think it's sad when I see some people have gone into So You Think You're Funny and then they decide to give up. You know, if you're good enough, you shouldn't give up. You should keep going, because you learn more from your disappointments and your failures than you do from your successes.
But the thing is, how you'd have to be self-aware enough in yourself to know you're good.
Well, for anybody to get up on stage to talk for an hour, you've got to be pretty self-aware and pretty good. Nobody, I mean, most people cannot stand up and talk for 5 minutes, let alone an hour. You know, so it's honing that skill, and let's face it, it's about making people laugh. And if you don't make them laugh in the first couple of seconds, you know, give it up.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming on. That was Karen. I love chatting with her. I think we went from a bit of a defensive and stunted start, where she even shouted, "Get to know me first," to a level of mutual respect, and I think she had such an earnest and honest take on the Fringe, and it was really fun to hear her perspective on things and the way she worked and how hard she works and what she's worked on for so many years. As she mentioned at the end, they are looking for a sponsor. So if you're a brand or somebody who represents a brand who thinks they might want to sponsor the Gilded Balloon, feel free to drop her or Katie an email. Their email is karen@gildedballoon.com or katie@gildedballoon.com. You can find those in the show notes. They're more than happy to talk to any brands that might be interested, although they'll be quite selective about which ones represent the Gilded Balloon in the way that they would like it to be. But I'll let that conversation happen between you guys. If you enjoyed this episode, you might also get a lot out of the other Edinburgh episodes, including Bob Slayer, who runs the Blunderbuss and the bookshop, Alex Petty from Laughing Horse, Hills Jager from the Amused Moose, and many, many more. Seriously, in the show notes and on the website, go to the Edinburgh Fringe section, and if you're taking a show to the Fringe, you can hear the reviewers and the producers and the promoters who I've interviewed before. And if you've got any suggestions, feel free to email me, and I'll be more than willing to take on board any suggestions from you guys. That would be awesome. Finally, if you're new here, please do subscribe. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider giving it a review. If you've already given it a review, join the Facebook group. It's a free way of getting involved in the conversations that we're having on here. And if you are valuing my work in any way, shape or form, please consider sending me a donation over PayPal, which you can find on my website, or becoming a regular donor via Patreon from $1. That's 80p. If you think what you just heard is worth 80p, please do consider doing it. If you can't afford to do it on a regular basis, bung me 80p over PayPal. That's absolutely fine as well. All donations help continue to support the project that you care about. So thank you very much for that. Also, if you live in Hastings, Shaftesbury, Oxford or Woking and you would like to see my show Buddhism and Cats, the tour is coming to your towns in the start of July. So please do consider coming down and supporting me at those. You can also bung me a donation at those. That's absolutely fine as well. Looking forward to meeting more people from the pod. I'm loving meeting people and bumping into people at gigs. So if you do find me at a gig or you do find me out and about, do come say hi. Honestly, I enjoy it, and I enjoy meeting the listeners of this, because it means that it's not just an irrelevant number on a download screen. It's actually a person that I can put a face to. Until the next episode, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for reviewing. Thank you very much for donating if you do. And I will see you in about 10 days' time. Bye.